be selling to their 14, 15, 16-year-old peers, thus recruiting more children to this very lifestyle of drug usage and drug selling that we're trying so hard to keep away from them, and it is being caused by our program of drug prohibition. I assert to you, no one today, no child today, is selling Jim Beam bourbon on their high school campuses, are they? Why? Because the alcohol is regulated and controlled. If Jim Beam or any of these folks, Budweiser, whatever, were to get anywhere close to this, they'd be in so much trouble you couldn't believe it. It doesn't happen. But it happens with the illegal drugs all the time because they're prohibited. Which brings us to an absolute cardinal rule. Prohibition never works as well as regulation and control. Prohibition never works as well as regulation and control. Why? Because as soon as you prohibit a substance, you give up all of your ability to have anything at all to say about what? Its strength, its quality, place of sale, its price, age restrictions, nothing. You abandon all of those critically important elements to the illegal sellers. I say these drugs can be too dangerous to leave in the hands of thugs. Doesn't it make sense to you? So these are things that are in our control. We must repeal drug prohibition in the United States of America. I will go so far as to tell you two things. Number one, in my view, strongly, I will tell you that drug prohibition is the biggest failed policy in the history of our country, second only to slavery. That sounds pretty radical, but it's not. It's true. The biggest failed policy in the history of our country, second only to slavery. It has its tentacles in pretty much everything that's going wrong in our world today. Ask yourselves, in any policy a government can put in, or anybody for that matter, there are always some winners and some losers, right? Some people come out ahead, some people come out behind. And that's true in healthcare, it's true in education. I assure you it's true with regard to drug policy. So take a moment and think. Who today is coming out ahead with regard to our policy of drug prohibition? I have 6 groups of these as well. See if you agree with me. The first group that demonstrably is coming out ahead is who? The big-time drug dealers. They're making hundreds of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, tax-free, by the way, and they're laughing at us. No one in law enforcement. I'm in law enforcement. I've spoken to DEA agents, chiefs of police, all these sorts of people. Nobody in law enforcement will tell you that we seize more than 10% of the illegal drugs in our society today. And the more candid ones will tell you the truth, which is it's about 5%. So when you see yet another photo opportunity where we seized a ton of cocaine, and by the way, nobody can fathom how much a ton of cocaine is. That is not a victory. That is only a symbol of the depth of the problem. Because for every ton we seize, we easily fail to see somewhere between 10 and 15 tons. Now you're beginning to understand the depths of the problem. The big-time drug dealers are winning. And these seizures are just a cost of doing business. Number 2 group of people that are winning are the juvenile gangs. You have juvenile gangs here, don't you? I assume you have a drug gang, you have a gang problem, yes? No?
It's pseudo, but there's white supremacy here.
Okay. You know where their biggest source of revenue is from what? Sale of illegal drugs. Juvenile gangs, I don't know, white supremacists, they're using this as a recruiting tool. Hey, you want to make some money? Come join our gangs and you too can be a part of the action. Juvenile gangs are winning for exactly that reason. Number 3 group of people that are winning are those in law enforcement that are being paid big time tax money to fight against the first 2 groups. Now, by the way, stop. I am not under any circumstances pointing the finger at law enforcement and saying you failed us. That is a difficult, dangerous job they have. They're arresting more people than ever before. They're getting longer prison sentences, seizing more drugs than ever before. Blaming law enforcement for the failure of drug prohibition is like blaming Elliot Ness for the failure of alcohol prohibition. Not true. It's the system, not law enforcement. I want to be really clear about that. Nevertheless, law enforcement is winning. Their bureaucracies continue to expand. They're getting more powerful, more money. They're winning. Actually, it's an amazing partnership that the good guys and the bad guys have for the perpetuation of the status quo. They're both winning. Number 4 group of people that are winning are the politicians. The people that talk tough with regard to the war on drugs. Not smart, just tough. In fact, I'm now running for, we're dealing in a soundbite world, and I think it's a tragedy, because life is simply more complicated than that. But I'm going to show you, and you've heard it before, now I'm running for office, doesn't matter what. You give me a 5-second soundbite, and I'll show you how tough I really can be. Ready? Go. Vote for Gray, I'll put those drug dealers in prison and save our children. Pretty good, huh? Doesn't work. But how many of you heard the equivalent of that, of all these various politicians? They get elected and re-elected by talking tough on the war on drugs. Not smart. In fact, honestly, from my perspective as a veteran trial court judge, I am here to tell you that the tougher we get with regard to drug crime, literally the softer we get with regard to the prosecution of everything else. Why? Because we only have so many resources in the criminal justice system, and if we're out there spending them on nonviolent drug offenses, literally we're not spending them on the prosecution, investigation of robbery, rape, and murder. In my first book, drug policy book, Why Our Drug Laws Have Failed, I actually found statistics from the federal government, it's always from the federal government, that showed that we were only half as successful in 1990 in prosecuting homicides nationwide as we had been in 1980. And you know why? Because again in the 1980s, the Reagan administration again ratcheted up the prosecutions of nonviolent drug offenses. We only have so many resources to use. We were only half as successful in prosecuting homicides in 1990 as we had been in 1980. So that's a message we have to get out to these politicians as well. If you hear stuff like this, you ask them why they're saying stuff like that and how they think we're in better shape today than we were 5 years ago. And tell them directly, if you don't start talking sensibly about this issue instead of tough, we'll find somebody that will. But politicians are winning. Number 5 group of people that are winning are those in the private sector that make money because of increased crime. Who is that? Pretty straightforward. People that build prisons, very, very lucrative occupation. People that staff prisons. I don't know about Missouri, but I can tell you, in California, you know who the strongest political lobby group is in our state? It is the Prison Guards Union, and I expect it's pretty close to the same here too. They're winning. People that sell security services, burglar alarm equipment, all of these people are winning. Thank you very much. And the 6th group of people that are winning, now this is a little tougher. It's the terrorist groups around the world. Every terrorist organization worldwide gets its primary source of funding from what? From the sale of illegal drugs. Literally, drug prohibition is the golden goose of terrorism. And if we really wanted to fight terrorism, we would adopt the most successful approach that we could come up with, which is take away their money. There will always be people in the world that are radical, extremists, whatever, that want to do bad things to good people, but they'll be less dangerous if they have less money. So if we really wanted to fight terrorism, that's what we would do. And unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that our government doesn't particularly care that much about fighting terrorism, so they don't even discuss this issue. So those are the 6 groups of people that are winning. I assume you would agree with that. Who is losing? Everybody else. Particularly our children. We've already discussed it. Easier for them to get any drug that they want to and more than alcohol. Recruiting children into juvenile gangs and everything because of the drug money. So these are things we simply need to look at. I'm going to wrap this up and see if you have any questions, because that's certainly more fun for me. But I'm going to leave you with a story. The story is that there was this man. He's on his deathbed, very end of his life, and he knew he was dying. So he called his wife to his side and said, "Well, dear, I know I'm not long for this earth, but before I leave, I just want to get something off my chest. And that is that for years now, I've been having an affair with such and such a lady that lives across the street. And I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but I think you have a right to hear this and hear it from me." She looked at him. She thought for a moment. Then she said, "That's okay. I know. That's why I poisoned you." Well, in such a similar way, we are poisoning ourselves by our choice of drug policy. We couldn't do it worse if we tried. We can only get better from here, and it's up to us. You know, honestly, if our government isn't working, it's our fault. It's our government, and that just means we're not doing enough. If you're really interested in doing something, you can get a copy of my book. I don't care, Xerox, a copy of the chapter on needle exchange programs or whatever you want. Call your mayor. If you have 10 people here that can vote for somebody on a city council or an assembly or the mayor or whatever, and you write them a letter saying, "We, all 10 of us, can vote for you. Will you please come and talk to us about the issue of, for example, needle exchange program?" They'll come. They will come. Or just, let's make the prosecution of nonviolent drug offenders the lowest priority. Let's focus on treatment instead of arrest and incarceration. They'll listen to you. Politicians are really, really good at one thing. They will follow where the votes are. And if they feel that the votes are in favor of a discussion, in favor of a better approach, and it couldn't be worse if we tried, they will listen to you. It's up to us. So again, I appreciate the opportunity of speaking with you. I look forward to your questions, because once again, that's the most fun part. And I'll be the last one out the room, too, by the way, after our session is over. But does anybody have any questions?